So this is the second installment in a series of segments we're calling Pixels. Like I said, they're microscopic looks at the what it takes to make up the full picture of the worship experience. So one thing that's been on my mind lately the last few weeks is our communication. Not only like the style of communication, but the tools that we use for communication. And one of the main tools that we use is Slack. But I think what we did was we kind of pushed Slack out there and said, all right, everybody, we're using Slack. And nobody really spent some time to walk people through kind of why we want to use Slack and some of the benefits of it. So that's a little bit of what I want to do today. And I'm just going to take about 10 minutes. I'm going to try not to go any longer than that, just to show you a couple changes that we're making to the workspace that we're all in, and some ways that we can all leverage that, and then just some tips and tricks for how to make it a little bit more useful. So I'm going to put my computer, I'm not going to put my computer on the screen, they're going to put my computer on the screen. So I'm going to talk about workspaces, channels, and messages, and just some stuff that we can do within each one. So right now, this is our workspace called Elevation Teams, and this is the workspace that all of our, not only staff, but all of our volunteers are in. So if you get a Slack message on the weekend, it probably comes from the Teams workspace. Real quick, I'm going to show you how to sign into that, just in case you've forgotten that process or haven't done that. But if I'm on mobile or if I'm on the desktop version in my workspaces area, I can click this plus button and sign into a new workspace. It's a little confusing because every workspace in Slack, you have to create a separate Slack account. So you don't create one Slack account for all your workspaces. You create a new Slack account every time somebody makes a new workspace. So one thing that's a big problem right now is a lot of people are making new workspaces every time, like a new campus wants to start using Slack. They'll make a new workspace, and another team might make a separate workspace like production or something. What we need to do is try to consolidate some of that so you don't have 5 or 6 workspaces over here, because it gets really confusing when you're switching back and forth between different workspaces. So I'm going to sign in with my email. Oh, actually, sorry. In this part, you need to put in your Slack URL. So for this workspace, it's EC-Teams. That's a separate one. It's invite only. So ec-teams.slack.com. And that'll join. I'll sign in with my username and password. My username is my email. My password is password. I always watch like video tutorials and people like can't type, and I'm like, why can't you type? Why is it so hard for you to type? And then when I'm actually trying to type and teach people at the same time, it's really difficult. I know I'm doing great. I don't need you to tell me I'm doing great. And this is another helpful tool as well. If you're on desktop, I don't think you could do this on mobile, but if you have a workspace that you want maybe to put at the top, you can just click and drag it to the top, and it'll rearrange it there. So this is the Teams workspace, and if you've seen it before today, in our channels area, there was a lot of different channels that were like weekend, general, streams, depending on what channels you're in. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of change of structure for channels. So if you're a volunteer and you're already in this workspace, you probably saw a few notifications went out today that said I changed the name of some channel, whatever. What we're doing right now is I'm starting every channel name with 3 digits, either numbers or letters. So for new events like the weekend, right now we have the weekend and we have rhythm nights. Let me zoom in and show y'all. So we've got 001 weekend. This is the one that was called weekend before. It's the same kind of communication. So any updates from Jared, any updates from like whoever's at front of house here on clocks, things like that, that'll all the main communication will go in the weekend channel. And then we've got a rhythm night channel, but any event or central communication, we'll make a channel that'll look like this. It'll have 3 digits. We'll start with 3 on the next one and 4. Like Reflect is coming up, so we'll make a channel called Reflect, probably 003 Reflect. We do that just to keep it organized, because you can't like sort manually. It's alphabetical in Slack, so we use a number just to keep everything kind of sorted so it doesn't get all jumbled. So that's going to be main communication for like from central out to campuses. And then I'm introducing kind of a new like structure for some other types of channels. So I'm kind of experimenting with these 411 channels. So 411_live time, 411_pro presenter. These will be like channels that are information about those specific tools. So if Jared has something that he wants to share about ProPresenter, or if somebody wants to share like a trick they found with ProPresenter, they can post it in this channel. So if you have a volunteer that their main role is like running live time or running ProPresenter, they can join that channel as well, and they can contribute or they can glean from whatever is being shared in there. So hopefully that'll help. And then one other thing I hope to add is a section of 911 channels for like, especially for technical support or production support, things like that. But beyond that, so that's kind of like what's already been happening. That's just a little bit of restructure inside the channel. And then what I hope to do to help consolidate some of the workspaces that you guys have set up for campus-specific stuff is start creating channels for specific campuses. So starting with your 3-letter code for your campus, so Asheville, Blakeney, Columbia, Concord, _, and then whatever your team is. So for production teams, you guys are welcome to, I've went ahead and made these channels, but you guys are welcome to go ahead and set up and join these channels and invite your teams to join these channels, because most of your teams are already on these channels, already in this workspace, so they can just join these channels. So that'll help kind of keep things clean and keep your communication all within the same place. One thing that's actually really helpful with that, if it's all in the same workspace, let's say we get an update on the weekend. So Jared says, some instructions for ProPresenter lyrics, right? If all of your team isn't on that weekend thread, which they might not all need to be, what you can do instead of having to copy and paste or retype that message is you can just click share and just say, I'm going to share this to my Asheville team. And just share. And now it's in the Asheville channel. So it took you 5 seconds just to pass that communication along. And the great thing is now you can tell your teams, hey, if you're at Matthews, you can just search in your channels. So if I want to join a channel I'm not in, I can just click on channels, or on mobile, you click the plus next to channels. But say you're serving at Matthews and you want to know what all communication's happening at Matthews. I can just type MAT and see all the channels that are set up for Matthews campus. Same thing with the information stuff. If I search 411, I can see all the 411 channels that are set up. So don't feel like your teams need to be on all these channels. I've got them all listed here, but not everybody needs to be in all these channels. You can tell your teams, hey, join the channels that you need to be in. So let me back up and talk about some settings, because I know one of the things that gets people a lot is like notifications and stuff. So if you log in, you sign in, what you can do is click on the workspace here and go to Preferences. And this is going to be where you set notifications. And this is something that it's kind of set up by default, but you probably need to go in here and mess around with notifications, because it can get overwhelming if you're not careful. If you join a bunch of channels, let's say you're a really involved person, you join a bunch of channels and a lot of communication starts happening. That's what we want. We want a lot of communication to happen, but if you're in all those channels, it can get overwhelming because you might feel like, I can't keep up with everything that's happening. So a couple things you can do to help that is you can say all new messages if you want to know every time a new message is posted, or you can say direct message mentions and keywords. And I can even add keywords. So say my role is, if I'm talking about my role in the past, I can add lighting. So if somebody says something about lighting, I can be notified whenever that happens. Resolume, anything like that. And I can add keywords. So anytime somebody mentions that word, I'll get notified about that as well, no matter where it was. So that's really helpful. And then do not disturb is something that you can turn on, but that's bit us in the past, because a lot of times do not disturb will be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And for Sunday morning call times, 5:30. And we try to send Slack messages and people are still on do not disturb and they don't realize it. So it's good to go in and just uncheck that and make sure that do not disturb does not turn on automatically. It's not scheduled. And there's other stuff you can mess around with too. And I want to do one more thing, show you one more thing in the settings. for sidebar, because this is really helpful. You can check two things here that kind of organize your sidebar a little bit. You can say list private channels separately. So if you have any private channels, I've got one here for Resolume campuses. It'll put those at the bottom of your list so you can see those separately so they don't get mixed up amongst all your other channels. And then show all unreads adds this kind of option to the top of your sidebar to help you quickly catch up on anything you didn't see before. Say you were gone for a few days, you haven't looked at Slack, you can just say show all unreads and you get this section in the sidebar that now you can click on and easily jump to catch up on any communication in any channels that you didn't see. So that's a little bit about workspaces, setting up channels. Let me talk about one more thing with channels. You can go into your channel settings and just mute a channel. This is one thing that a lot of people need to know, because the weekend channel, we could go and make a new channel every weekend or make like an A week, B week channel, but that gets kind of clunky and somebody might miss something. So what I would say is for the person that's not serving, to put it on them to mute their notifications. And it's really easy just to go up to channel settings and just say mute. And that actually, it shows you that your channel is muted by putting it at the bottom of your list, and it grays it out as well. So that way they won't miss if communication starts happening again. They'll know, oh, I need to go unmute that channel. So that's a super helpful trick so people don't get bombarded on weekends off or something like that. And they can turn on Do Not Disturb or turn off notifications for Slack overall, but that's a quick way just to turn off one channel if you don't need to know what's going on in that channel and that team. And so let me share a couple tips and tricks about messages that kind of help you guys be more efficient with communicating and sharing. With reactions, we do that a lot. So a lot of people use little reactions, emojis and stuff. Thumbs up is a great one. Some people like to do the, what is this called? Just rock on. But any sort of reaction is really helpful, especially for us. Like if me or Jared send out a really time-sensitive message, a simple thumbs up, or even something like this, rock on, will help us know, hey, we got it, heard. It's just like saying copy over comm. It's really helpful to know, hey, we got that message, we know, we're on it. So any sort of reaction is really helpful. If you accidentally misspell something, you get in the habit of like, you post asterisk and correct your word or whatever, that can be real annoying because just some simple etiquette stuff. If you look at our directory, we have, I think, over 150 people in this workspace right now. So if you post something in weekend, it sends out 157 notifications. So in order to kind of cut back on that, if you make some sort of an accident, you post something, you spell something wrong, you can just go in here and, I don't think I can do it to Jared's message, but let's say I spell something wrong. Spell Asheville wrong. I can go in here and I can just say more actions, and I can edit this message. And it doesn't send out another notification, it just updates that message. It says edited, but that way you can, it's important to look professional when you communicate, and also not notify people that you misspelled something 3 times. So just edit your message if you say something wrong or if you spell something wrong, and it'll just keep the information up to date. I talked about sharing messages, and then a couple things just to help, like I said, manage that that tension of notifying 150 people every time something needs to be said. If you need to direct a question to somebody, use their handle. So if you start with @, say Jared Olson. What's up, buddy? I'm not going to send it, but that way, if people do have notifications set to direct messages and mentions only, they'll still get that notification. So it's good if you need to direct a question to somebody, good practice to use their handle and mention them directly. And it kind of directs the conversation, because how many of you guys have ever gotten in that situation where like you'll ask one question and then somebody else will ask another question right after you do, and then somebody will try to answer your question, but they think they're answering the person. It gets really confusing. So using a mention helps direct communication to who it actually needs to go to. And another thing that's really helpful is using threads. So I've done this on the production director channel before, but if you post a question and you expect a lot of people to answer, it's good to say, hey, start a thread on this message. Because if you kind of throw it out there, you throw something out there and you expect 14 responses, well, I don't want everybody in the channel to get notified of my 14 responses I just asked for. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, start a thread on this message, and I'll show you how that works. I'm going to go over here to our other workspace so I don't blow everybody up. But this message Jared just sent here, let's say I want to respond to it or have a question about it. Rather than blowing everybody up with my question, I can just click on this second little, I guess it's a thought bubble, and it says start a thread, and now I can reply to Jared. And it starts a thread, and nobody else in the channel gets notified except Jared. And he can reply to me, and it won't notify anybody else, but we can have our own conversation here. And that also shows up in my all threads section. So if I have a long conversation with somebody, I can kind of get back to that really quickly in my all threads section. If for some reason who you need to talk to isn't answering, or you definitely need to get communication out to everybody no matter what, you can kind of use the emergency @channel. We've done this before, but that'll notify everyone in that channel no matter what their notification settings are. So if you I need everybody to see this 100%, you can say @channel. I would use that sparingly for sure, but you can do that. And for power users, there's some really cool stuff when you hit I guess that's the /. There's a ton of things that you can do with this to make reminders, to leave channels really quickly, join channels. So, and there's more information on that in this website, get.slack.help. It's a great resource to go to for more tips and tricks, more information, any questions you have, you can go to get.slack.help. So if you have any more questions or suggestions for how to make this workspace better or how to make communication better in general, you can direct message me. If you actually go /MSG, then you can type, you can put my name. And I'll get a direct message from you that won't notify everybody else. So, cool. Any questions? That's all I got. Yeah, I mean, Tiffany and Anna got something definitely cool. I feel like the teacher, do you want to share that with the rest of the class? Cool. Me and Jared get that all the time. We just get the giggles and we just can't stop. So, cool. Thanks, guys. Let me pray us out. I think we're good. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Questions, thoughts, anything about the weekend? Awesome. So the baptism flow and Won't Stop Now isn't final. We're just experimenting with it today, so we'll land on a final flow for that in the next day or two. So today's a great reference just for trying something new, and we'll see if what kind of feedback we get on it. If we decide it's not the way to go, we'll make the change and make sure everybody knows. Cool? Oh, yep. Yeah, when do production directors update cue sheets? So most people do a first pass at it Thursday afternoon from the master cue sheet, and then Sunday morning and Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, they take a look at it to make sure it's still up to date, because we'll update the master cue sheet first, and they'll copy over any changes.
A little more clarity on that. Like once, we won't let people know like globally of changes if it's before noon on Saturday. We'll just make the update and assume that people are checking. If it's
Cool.
after noon, then throughout the extra part of the day, then we'll post somewhere that there's a change.
So up to noon on Saturday, we're not going to send a bunch of communication about changes, just check the cue sheet. And by noon on Saturday, once we hit that deadline, if there's changes after that, then we start kind of live updating people on Slack and through text messages and such.
For the 401 channels, can we get like the support documents that already exist for those channels? And those channels are great, like on Team Joy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let me show you one more thing with those channels. So like I posted a couple messages in this Resolume one that I'd had in our other group. But one thing you can do is under more actions, you can also pin a message. So like these couple links and things, I'll just pin those. And now if you go to your channel details, this little information button, you can go to pinned items and you can see the two messages that I pinned. So you have a quick link to those. No matter how much communication happens in this channel, you always have those kind of at the top. So for sure. Yeah, anything else like that, let me know.